Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this video. I talk about a lot of things about living here life in Panama. And today we're going to talk about some of those cons. We're going to talk about the 23 reasons that you might rethink twice about moving to Panama. Okay, so those that don't know me, my name is Mary Goff and my channel is all about supporting, encouraging, and motivating Black women over 50 to live their best lives. I'm all about teaching you how to move abroad, giving you tips on how to move abroad. We're talking about traveling, tips on traveling, and also health and wellness. Because, hey, if you're not healthy, then you can't be moving abroad or traveling. Okay, so if those things interest you, then please hit the like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notifications button so you will be aware of my next video. All right, so let's get right into these 23 reasons that you may rethink twice about moving to Panama. These are some of the cons. These are not necessarily my particular cons and not in any particular order. Just by talking to several members here in the community, I've been in Panama for the last 2 years. So I'm going to share with you today about things that I have learned. Okay, the number one reason that you might want to rethink twice about moving to Panama. Once again, these are not in any particular order. We're going to first talk about the climate and the weather. Okay, so Panama is hot and humid, has a tropical climate, and has a rainy season. Now, we can't really always predict when it's going to be raining. There's supposed to be certain months that it's dry, some months it's rainy, but in my 2 years, it's been inaccurate, so you just got to prepare. So people always say, what's the best time to come to Panama? The best time to come to Panama is when it's good for you. Okay, so don't go by the weather forecast because sometimes it could call for rain. It might not rain that day, or it could rain for an hour and it's dry and sunny the next day. So the weather can be unpredictable, but majority of the time it's going to be hot and humid, okay, and rainy. So if you're not into those type of weathers, climates, then Panama might not be the place for you. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is a language barrier. Okay, we know that Spanish is the official language here in Panama. So the majority of people speak Spanish. Okay, so if you're not comfortable using Google Translate, or you're not fluent in Spanish, or you don't know a little bit of Spanish, then you might have a problem or might be a little difficult taking care of your everyday tasks, like going to the grocery store. If the cashier does not speak any English at all, you're not going to know what she's saying to you. So if you need to be in an English speaking country, then this might not be the place for you because the official language here is Spanish. So the majority of the time, that's what you're going to get when you're moving around the community. Okay. All right. The third thing we're going to talk about is inconsistency. Okay, we're going to give an example of several things that can be inconsistent here while living in Spanish. Customer service. Sometimes you're going to get great customer service. Sometimes you might not get so much good customer service. There was a guy who is a seafood supplier. He has his own company and he delivers fish and seafood direct from the uh, fishermen, and he delivers them to your apartment. He was referred to a lot of us expats that were using him. He was great. He would send you the menu. You would shop. All of a sudden, he was missing days. He wasn't consistent. You didn't know what he had, and then he just kind of like disappeared and just stopped his service altogether. So that's one of the one of the examples. Another example, there could be a realtor that is highly referred by everyone. Okay, but when you actually use this realtor, you cannot reach them. They're not returning messages. Uh, they don't give you the listings. They want to know what you want, but when you give them the list of things that you want, they show you the opposite. Basically, they didn't even read your list and are not even paying attention. So things can be a little inconsistent. You can go to your favorite restaurant, order your favorite meal. You come back the third time, order that same meal, it might not taste the same. So if you need things the same way all the time, then Panama's not going to be the place for you. You got to be flexible because what might be good one time might not be good the next time. Okay, let's look at number 4, cost of living. Now they say Panama is an affordable destination. Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Panama can be affordable. However, while there are rents that vary from, hey, 900 bucks, hey, to way over $5,000. There are some things that can be more expensive here in Panama. So you have to prepare that things are not going to always be so affordable. Your utility bills might be high. Some foods that you purchase might be higher. Uh, Eating out at a restaurant might cost you a little more for a good restaurant. So although some people might say it's an affordable destination, but it's not necessarily a cheap destination. And those words really depend on your budget. Okay, so make sure you research all of those things before you're thinking about moving to Panama. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is trash. Panama has a huge problem countrywide with trash. Um, I don't think there is a systematic weekly schedule for trash pickup. Sometimes you can go for a walk, you don't see any trash. Other times, the entire trash cans will be overflowing. You'll go to the beach, there's trash all over the beach. Uh, the coastline, there's a really nice area, Costa del Este, which is one of the most expensive areas here in the city. It's like a little suburban area outside of the city. However, the coastline in that area is full of trash. If you saw one of my walking videos that I did on Santa Castera, right across the wall, the coastline near the water is filled with trash. So that seems to be a problem that's been going on for a very long time here. Panama City has like a gritty feel to it, you know, because I walk, so I don't drive, so I get to see and feel the pulse of the city, and sometimes it feels gritty. It might not be as clean. Might be a little dirty to you. So depending on where you are, sometimes you're going to see trash, and sometimes you're going to see, dog poop. People don't always pick up after their dogs. So once again, keep that in mind. Trash, grit, dirt. You're going to see all of that here in Panama. All right. Okay, the next thing, number 7, we're going to talk about are uneven sidewalks and potholes could be in the street. Now, from my friends who drive, they say some of the roads are in really bad condition, depending on where you're driving at in Panama, so you got to be careful. I know walking in Panama can also be treacherous because you could be walking along on a beautiful sidewalk, and all of a sudden there's a gigantic hole in the middle of the sidewalk. So you need to make sure you're looking around, looking forward before you take that step to make sure there's no holes, because there's not going to be a cone. It's not going to be beware. It's not going to be section off. You're going to have to just see it yourself. There was a young lady here, an expat here, who was walking and literally fractured her ankle because she did not see the hole. So you can't just aimlessly walk around. You got to make sure you're looking down at the grounds as well, because you could easily fall into a hole. Okay. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is the pedestrian walkways. Now, yes, there are pedestrian walkways to help you cross the street. However, just because it's a pedestrian walkway does not mean the cars are going to stop. Matter of fact, the majority of the cars will not stop for a pedestrian. So, what you need to do, what I do is I'll put up my hand, make sure I have eye contact with the driver, make sure they have either nodded their heads, waved their hands, telling me to go, or flash their car lights, letting me know it's safe to drive. So I go past that first car. The second lane, I pause, right? Because 9 times out of 10, that second car is not paying attention and they're going to speed. Even though this first car might have the blinking lights on, they're going to speed past the pedestrian walkway. And if I keep walking, I'm going to get hit. So I always pause and make sure that car stops before I continue on. Don't assume they are going to stop for a pedestrian in that walkway. I've seen some near miss. I've seen people, jump out in front of cars. I'm not doing that. Okay, so beware. If you're walking in Panama, don't assume they're going to stop. Make sure you're very cautious when you are crossing the street in a pedestrian walkway. Okay, number 9 we're going to talk about is infrastructure issues. Some of the main, outside of the major cities, can be lacking. You could experience some power outages, you could experience some water shortages. I have a friend that lives in the Dave David and Boquete area, and she says that during a certain time of year, they either have to limit their water use or they cannot use them during a particular hour. So that's something that you need to keep in mind if you decide to move into a rural area here in Panama, that you might have to deal with some sort of issues like that. Another thing in the rural area is that taxis, it might be limited public transportation. So taxis might be hard to come by and Ubers might be non-existent. So keep that in mind if you're going to be moving to a rural area. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about, number 10, traffic and driving. Uh, Traffic here in Panama can be a nightmare. The driving culture is very aggressive. Sometimes you'll see, 3 people trying to crowd together in one lane. I primarily use Uber or driver to get around. I don't drive here in Panama, but nobody uses signals. Everybody blows their horn. You could have someone in the left lane who's crossing over 3 cars to make a right-hand turn. So it's like no rules. I'm sure there are driving rules here. However, it doesn't appear that anyone is following them. So you're in an Uber, buckle up, say a prayer, and hope for the best. I know people that do drive here and they're like gripping the steering wheel and they're like stressed out the entire time they're driving. I am primarily living this life of ease, soft life in this particular season part of my life, and I'm not adding any more stress to it. So for me, driving is a definite no. But sometimes that Uber ride, is pretty scary because of the aggressive driving and the bad traffic here in Panama City. Okay, let's look at number 11, internet reliability. While internet service is generally good in the urban areas, sometimes depending on the apartment, sometimes depending on the connections, if it's a bad weather storm or something like that, your internet service could go down. All right. And sometimes, depending on if you're in a rural part of the country, down. So I'm having to re-record over the original video, so my words and lips may not match. So let's go to number 12, the cultural differences. Adapting to a new culture can be challenging. The pace of life, social norms, and customs in Panama might take some getting used to. For instance, the Panamanians are more of a relaxed vibe. No one is in a big hurry to do anything. So you will not be rushed out of a restaurant. You can sit there for hours. You'll probably have to flag somebody down just to pay your check. In the grocery store, there could be like a long line of people waiting to check out their items, but the cashier is not going to move any faster to get through that line. Uh, you could have an appointment for a utility setup. Don't be surprised if the internet company is a no show or they can go to the wrong apartment. So, if you're a fast paced person, expect things to happen right away, then Panama may not be a good fit for you. Okay? So, let's take a look at number 13, crime and safety. Just like in any big city, you need to be aware of certain neighborhoods in the city that have more crime. Also, in the tourist areas, be aware of, pickpockets. Don't put yourself in a situation that you're unsure of or feeling uncertain. Okay, number 14, limited job opportunities. Unless you are working remotely or retired, finding employment is going to be difficult because most of the jobs here are restricted for foreigners. Most of the job market are for the local Panamanians. So if you don't already have a job before you get here, it might be tough to find one once you get here. So don't move here and then try to find a job because that's probably not going to work for you. Okay, so let's look at number 15, import taxes and availability. Import taxes on goods can be high, especially brand name products that you're used to. They can be hard to find, or if you did find them, they might be very expensive. They might be double or three times more than the price that you would normally pay. So most recognizable brands are going to be imported and are probably going to be available here if they are at a much higher price. So if you're not loyal to brands, you'll be fine. Buy local. But if you have to have a certain kind of brand, you might be able to find it, but just be aware you're going to be paying a lot more for it here. Okay, number 16, education system. If you have school age children, you might find the education system lacking compared to your home country. There are several people here, expats, that do have school age children. Some go to international schools, private schools, but just keep that in mind that that could be costly. So that's an additional cost that you want to do some research on and put that in your budget prior to thinking about moving here to Panama. Number 17, political stability. While generally stable, Panama has a share of political issues, which can sometimes lead to protests and civil unrest. Now, there was a large mining protest that went on for several months here in Panama that basically shut the country down. Supermarket shelves, local fruterias were empty because the roads were blocked by the protesters and the delivery trucks were not allowed to enter into the city. So there was also some civil unrest during that time. There were looting, there were crimes. So it was a pretty uneasy time here in Panama. So the majority of the protesters were pretty much not, you know, uh, they were pretty much mild, okay? But there were some occasions where some additional crimes were being done and there was some civil unrest. And so just know that, sometimes that could happen here in Panama. Matter of fact, some of the airport roads were closed down. People had a hard time getting in and out of Panama during that particular time. So just be aware of that as well. Okay, number 18, national disasters. Panama is prone to national disasters such as earthquakes and floods, particularly during the rainy season. Um, I remember when I first felt the first earthquake here in Panama. I was on the 19th floor and literally felt the room sway. I mean, all the blinds were rattling. It was very scary. So they don't happen often, but when they do often happen, depending on what you're doing at the time, depending on what time it happens, it might be a tremor. They call them earthquakes. You might feel it, you might not. But they don't have any like major hurricanes or tornadoes or anything like that. But if there's heavy rain, there might be some flooding in the area, and you might feel an earthquake here or there. So be aware of that. Okay, number 19, the language of the government. All official documents and government interactions are in Spanish, which can be a barrier if you're not fluent. All of your utility bills, your rental contract, uh, like at the bank, if you're at the bank, the withdrawal deposit slips, everything is in Spanish. So if you're not used to using Google Translate or know a little bit of Spanish or having to translate documents on the fly, then this might not be the country for you because a lot of the documents, most of the menus here at the restaurants are going to be in Spanish. Okay? All right, number 20, the local wildlife. Panama is home to a diverse wildlife, including insects and reptiles that you might find unsettling. The worst I've seen in a city was maybe a gecko and, depending on where you live, mosquitoes. But in the rural areas, I've heard that there were scorpions, there were snakes. Some people had them in their houses in boquete, some people don't. So I don't know much about that, but these are what people are telling me that live in the rural areas, sometimes spiders. So just know, depending on where you live, there might be some sort of insects or reptiles that you're going to have to deal with. Okay, number 21, isolation. Depending on where you live, you may feel isolated, especially if you're in a rural area from other expats and if you don't know the language, if you're not fluent in Spanish and not able to communicate with the local Panamanians. If you choose to move somewhere just because the rent is cheaper, there might be more Panamanians that live in that area. And if you don't know the language, and it might be sometimes difficult to get adjusted to the isolation. So even if you're in a community, sometimes it's hard to meet new people. Go to the expats groups, join a community so you won't feel isolated. So that's something that may happen in the city, it may happen in the rural areas, but just make sure you're aware that there could be some isolation. Okay, number 22, mail and delivery services. There is no Amazon Prime one day delivery service here. Panama doesn't really have a postal, situation. There's no mailman walking around delivering letters. Sometimes the mail packages can be slow and unreliable. Um, but so if you're used to fast and efficient mail service, no, this is not going to work for you. You're going to have to go through a third party shipping company to receive packages here in Panama. There's several to choose from. Uh, just don't use the one with a recognizable name because those prices are going to be a whole lot higher. Make sure you use a local Panamanian shipping company to have your packages here sent in Panama. Okay, number 23, cultural adaptation. Lastly, adjusting to a new lifestyle can be harder than you think. You could be homesick, there could be some cultural shock. These things are real and can affect your overall experience here in Panama. Your expectations may be different from the reality of living here in Panama. That's why I tell people you can read Facebook posts, you can talk to different people all you want, but it's best for you to come see for yourself. So there you have it. 23 reasons why you might think twice before moving to Panama. Of course, every place has its pros and cons and also has some wonderful, things about it too, right? It's all about sharing information with you so you can have the tools to make an informed decision. That's what we like to do on this channel, empower you with the information so that you can have the stuff that you need to make the decision that you need to make. So if you found this video helpful, please like and share. If someone else can benefit from this video, don't forget to let them know about it. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can have more tips on moving abroad. And if you have any suggestions for any videos that you want to see from me in the future, make sure you put those in the comments. And just know, listen, these are not necessarily my opinions. These are opinions and reasons that I have received from talking to many different expats. So no need to try to defend or justify or explain any of these reasons. This is just what people are saying in the Panama streets, okay? So don't blame the messenger, all right? This video was created so that you can have more information that you need to make whatever decision that you need to make that's best for you. A lot of videos we look at the pros, but sometimes we need to look at the cons as well. And this ideal actually came from someone, one of my subscribers, who suggested that I also talk about some of the cons. I don't live my life looking at the negatives, but that doesn't mean you don't have to consider them when making an informed decision, especially when it comes to relocating abroad, because that's a really big decision. So, hey, you're the only one that can decide whether or not Panama is right for you. I do have a couple of other videos that I'm thinking about doing. Well, actually, that I probably will do that also talk about things that you need to reconsider when you're thinking about moving here, because some of the people, when you think about it, come here unprepared, totally unprepared. So I'm going to talk about that in one of my upcoming videos as well, because hey, you can't just go by what somebody is saying. You can't go by what somebody reads. You can't go by just one of the videos that you watch on my channel. You got to come see for yourself, okay? Because your expectation might be completely different than the reality of living here. And coming here for a weekend or a week and doing a whole bunch of tourist stuff is not going to be real life here in Panama. So look at that, think about that. All I'm trying to do is give you the information you need to empower you to make the best decision for you. No need arguing about these reasons in the comments. You don't need to do that. Okay? Take what you need. If it doesn't apply to you, don't worry about it. All right? But once again, if you think it applies to somebody else or somebody else can benefit from this video, then share it. All right? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for joining my YouTube community. I'm really enjoying providing this information and sharing resources with you. Have a great day, and thanks so much for watching.